Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another 2024 Senate map prediction. And this is the prediction for February 2024. So the election's November, and this is how we're going to be currently doing the Senate map. So as I'm just setting up the safe states, if you aren't subscribed to the channel already, highly recommend doing so, especially if you like political content like this. But yeah, let's just get right into this video. So a few of my ratings have changed. I shifted a few races or so from the last prediction, just based off fundraising, what candidates I think is going to get chosen for the nomination or so. But let's get right into this. So starting with Missouri, Lucas Kunz, he's a decent Democrat for the state, but I still think Josh Hawley is going to end up winning re-election against him. It's still going to be safe Republican. I just doubt the Democrats' ability to hold on here. The polls always show them in the competitive range, and all these undecideds just go to the Republicans in the state of Missouri, and that's probably what's going to happen again. So, yeah, it's going to be safe Republican. West Virginia is a bit interesting because I'm pretty sure Blankenship is running in the Democratic primary, and he's a Republican. So if he wins the nomination, maybe get it down to likely are he would still lose to Jim Justice, who's just a strongly popular Republican governor here. And he was so popular that Joe Manchin didn't even want to attempt running against him because he was going to lose by an embarrassing, probably 15 to 20 point margin against him. And Manchin's approvals were just in the gutter anyway, so this is still safe Republican. Even if Blankenship somehow gets the Democratic nomination, it's probably still safe Republican. No shot at winning. Uh, Popular Democratic senators like Amy Klobuchar, she's already winning by a landslide in the gold standard Minnesota poll, so no chance at losing for her. In the state of Maine, Angus King, he's a very popular independent senator, caucuses with Democrats. He's easily going to win re-election here by over 10. Tim Kaine in the state of Virginia, none of these Republicans are really that good. Hung Kao has kind of shot himself in the foot at this point, and he's probably not even going to be the nominee at this point because other Republicans are just lining up with Scott Parkinson, and he's just outraising the rest of the Republicans here so far. Yeah. Well, actually, Hung Kao is actually outraising everybody else. But it really doesn't matter if you have all these endorsements behind it. We've seen that adds a lot of weight, especially with Tim Sheehy back in Montana. So I don't think he's going to be the nominee. I think it's going to be Scott Parkinson. Just based on this massive endorsement list, he's probably going to get a lot more money than what he's currently raised so far. So I expect that to tick up. That's only in December, so it's probably a bit higher on what we're seeing here. And I think he's probably going to win the nomination. And he's probably going to lose by a safe blue margin. Tim Kaine has pretty good approvals for the state of Virginia as well, so it's going to be safe Democratic. Down in the state of Florida with Rick Scott, even though he's not the most popular senator, he's very wealthy, so he could self fund his campaign. And Trump, or whoever the Republican nominee is going to be, it's probably not going to be Nikki Haley, let's be honest, it's probably going to be Trump. Well, Trump's probably going to win Florida by a likely Republican margin. That would be enough to drag Rick Scott over that likely Republican margin as well. Moving on to the state of New Mexico. I've seen some interest here, some Republican candidate. Let's see here. So this is the daughter of the former U.S. Senator Pete Dominic. Let's see here. Nella Dominici. Or Dominici. I'm just trying to get that name right. But he was a popular senator, I've heard from some people who was talking to me about the New Mexico Senate race. Still think it's going to be safe blue, though. I still don't think that name recognition is really going to do much in this state. And he's just raised quite a bit of money, Martin Henrik. He's probably going to hold on here. I just still don't think they're going to make it a competitive race. Expect the Democratic senator here to outperform Joe Biden even in the state of New Mexico. So still safe blue state. The state of Texas actually has a lot of polls recently come out, just showing Ted Cruz in a lot stronger of a position than I thought he would be in. Some polls even have him outperforming Donald Trump. So honestly, even though Colin Earlid, he's a good candidate for suburban turnout, it's probably not going to be enough to make this race competitive anymore. I don't think he's in his lean R anymore at this point. I think it's a likely Republican race. I think Ted Cruz is probably going to end up holding on. His favorable numbers aren't as bad as they used to be at this point. I think he's kind of breaking even, so I think he's going to hold on here just due to incumbency advantage and just probably being a much better fit for Texas at this point. He's just fixed his image a bit here. So let's see, what state should we focus on next? I guess we could focus on Michigan. It is an open Senate race. Maybe the presidential ballot would have a down ballot effect here in Michigan, but I think Elissa Slotkin is such a good candidate to appealing to independent voters. She knows how to run a winning race in the state of Michigan, so I still have this as a lean blue state. I still think Democrats are going to hold on here, but some polls did have it as a decently competitive matchup, but I'm pretty sure Elissa Slotkin has led in them every single time. And Republicans don't really have like the best candidates here. Their best one's probably James Gregg, and he did have a slight lead here, but there's so much undecided that they're probably just going to go to the Democrat anyway here, just due to independent voters liking Slotkin a lot. We've seen that in her House races. She's done pretty well. I think she outperformed Biden in those races as well. But yeah, I agree with the rating here. I do think this is a lean Democratic state. The state of Wisconsin, it has the potential of going likely blue. I'll say that because all the Republican candidates are just nobodies. All the good candidates declined to run, especially Mike Gallagher, would probably make this race very competitive. He's just running for his House district again. And the polling, the only one that actually had it close is Mike Gallagher. Generic Republican, that doesn't count. You actually have to have a named one. We've seen that, like, when you run a generic Democrat, they had such a huge lead, and then you give a name to that Democrat, and they do worse in the polls. So that's just called the generic effect. Uh, Again, Gallagher was their best bet, and he's not running, so they just don't have good candidates in the state of Wisconsin. Just due to the presidential down ballot effect, though, it won't be likely blue, it will be lean blue. In the state of Pennsylvania, again, Bob Casey, he's just leading by such a large margins in these polls. It's probably going to be a likely blue state, I would argue. So I still think Bob Casey is quite favored here. And David McCormick, he's just already being labeled as an out-of-state candidate like Dr. Oz was. They're attacking him for living in Connecticut a lot of his life. So again, he's getting labeled as a carpetbagger in Pennsylvania. It's really not a good thing to be labeled. We saw that with the Fetterman campaign, did that pretty successfully against Dr. Oz. So I have the state as likely blue. I think he definitely outperforms Joe Biden in the state of Pennsylvania. That's for sure. Very popular incumbent senator. Okay, in the states of Nevada and Arizona, I'll start with Arizona first. Again, it's looking like Sinema's not even going to run in this race. She's running out of time to get those signatures on the ballot for her to even be on the ballot as an independent candidate. Her fundraising's completely garbage. She's barely raising any money here. So we're not looking at a three candidate race here. We're probably looking at a 1v1 race. So again, who's that better for? I just think it simplifies the race a lot. It makes it a lot easier to predict what's going on here. Before, Sinema splitting the vote actually helped Ruben Gallego, and then some polls it helped Kari Lake. I would just say it helped like, kind of neither of them. I think is a good answer. But right now, I think we're just going into 1v1 territory here. And I still think Gallego's going to pull it off. Again, Kari Lake has the terrible favorables here. They chose the worst candidate. Can't believe we're going with her again, who lost an easily winnable governor race. Literally, Mark Lamb here would probably make a much better candidate than Kari Lake would. Maybe even Blake Masters would make it a lot more competitive than she would. I still think she's not the favorite here in the state of Arizona. I think they're going to reject her again. She couldn't get rid of her whining about her losing narrowly. She's still saying it was rigged or something like that. She just needed to accept her defeat and she'd be a much better candidate. They don't like a sore loser in elections. We've seen that time in and time again. So again, I think Kari Lake's going to lose the Senate race to Ruben Gallego. I think she's a terrible candidate. And yeah, they just don't like sore losers. Moving on to the state of Nevada, Democrats actually put a lot of money in the line here to reinforce Nevada's Senate race here. So far, every poll pretty much shows the Democrats leading here, but one poll did show it within the margin of error. But again, polls in Nevada frequently underestimate Democratic candidates over and over again. So a lot of those undecideds, those independents, are probably going to break the Democrats' way like they did back in the 2022 Senate race and back in 2020. So I still think those independents are going to go to the Democrats at the end of the day. So now we're going to Montana and Ohio. There's a lot of ticket split potential in both these states. Both have very popular Democratic senators. However, as my most recent prediction with Biden v. Trump, Trump's winning both these states by over 10%. So they both need a lot of ticket splitters here to split their ballots while voting for Trump and voting for the Democratic Senate candidate. So in Montana, it's a pretty bad outlook for Jon Tester. Even though he has very high approval ratings, they put a lot of money in the line in the state of Montana. Republicans, I recently saw they put 50 million, while Democrats only put 27 million so far in this state. They're probably going to raise a lot more to fortify Tester. But so far, Tim Sheehy, it looks like he might actually pull it off. It looks like a lot of independent voters, they're trying to fix his image here. One poll did show Sheehy down by 4, but look how many undecideds that is. That's a lot. And assuming that not a lot of these Trump voters that are probably undecideds, they're probably just going to vote straight ticket Republican. We have to factor that in too. And yeah, I just think Sheehy is a clean face candidate here. He's a clean slate, I mean. He doesn't have that baggage like Matt Rosendale did, where he lost to Tester back in 2018. Typically, you don't want a rematch between the same candidates because the incumbent's just going to win again. 9 out of 10 times that was the case. And with Tim Sheehy, he has a lot of money behind him. Again, he's a clean slate candidate. He doesn't have any scandals yet, unlike Matt Rosendale. So Tester, his best hope is that there's a scandal about Tim Sheehy because he needs that to hold on here. It's a very Republican state, a lot more Republican than the state of Ohio, and I have this as a lean Republican race just based off the fundraising numbers. Republicans are outraising Democrats in this state. They're outspending them already. Put more money in this state. So Republicans are playing a lot more safer, which they have to if they want to win the Senate. Montana's probably the key. Same with Ohio. With Ohio, Sherrod Brown, he led in every single poll against the most likely candidate, which is Bernie Moreno, because of that Trump endorsement. And so far, Moreno, he's still in a very competitive primary. Even with Trump's endorsement, he's still not winning over 50. He's still in the margin of error with Frank LaRose, who I think would probably make this state a lean Republican race with LaRose. He's probably the strongest candidate. He's won statewide before. He has a lot of backing with that. But we look at LaRose's money he's raised so far. It looks like Dolan's outraising him, but Dolan's still in third place. So, again, Moreno, he has that Trump endorsement, which would definitely help him out in the primary. And I think Moreno is probably going to end up being the nominee just due to that Trump endorsement or so. But Moreno, he's the weakest candidate, according to the polls. He's never led Sherrod Brown once in a poll, but we got to look at Sherrod Brown's not over 50%. One poll has him in the 39% range or so. Again, there's a lot of undecideds here, but typically they go to the incumbents in a Senate race. But again, if they nominate LaRose, it'll be a lean Republican race. But if they do Moreno, which is looking like they're probably going to, I think this race will probably end up being a tilt blue Senate race so far in the state of Ohio. But that's relying on hundreds of thousands of split ticket voters. So then again, would there be that much split ticket voters? I mean, we saw it in Ohio in 2022. We saw a lot of them split their ticket for Senate and for governor. Could happen again. So far, I think it probably is going to happen if they nominate Moreno, who's just never led Sherrod Brown in a single poll. However, Moreno just starts leading. It's probably going to shift this race back to Republican. So far, I think the most likely scenario is Republicans retake the Senate with at least 51 seats, the Democrats 49. They could potentially get 52 if they decide to run LaRose, who would be a much better candidate. He's actually led Sherrod Brown in a poll at least. But other than that, that's how I see the Senate shaking. I think Republicans are the odds-on favorites to win the Senate. They probably have a 62% chance at winning the Senate, while Democrats have a 38% chance. The key is just Montana and winning the presidential election, so they override that tie with the VP. But other than that, that's how I see the 2024 Senate map shaking out for the month of February 2024. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Yeah, thanks. I'll see y'all in the next one.